time for a book review. Make sure you like and subscribe, everybody. It really helps. All right, welcome to Normal Guy Games. This is it's going to be something new. It's a book review for an independent skirmish game. The game in question is going to be County Road Z, and County Road Z is a miniature agnostic skirmish game that's set in the zombie apocalypse centered around rural America. It supports solo and co-op, which is kind of a big plus for me, because those are the games that I look for. I do mostly solo and co-op when I can get some players with me. The zombies have an AI which is really simple and elegant. I'm really a big fan of games with easy to run enemies. The game can be played in a simple manner or complex manner, depending on what rules you want to adopt. And one of the big taglines in the books is, remember, the rules aren't the enemy, the zombies are. So the basics of that is to say, if there's a rule in there you don't like, or if there's something that works out a little bit better, then use it. I mean, it's just that simple. So it's important to keep in mind keep that in mind as you're running around, taking out zombies, Walking Dead style, because this game really does kind of remind me of a Walking Dead-esque type game or scenario. So the game itself was developed to be gridless, and it can be adapted to a grid terrain, like if you have like a battle mat or something like that, like a chess X mat. But what you're going to need to play, it's fairly easy. You just need some 10-sided dice, measuring tools, and a play area. And then to get everything set up, you need miniatures, terrains, and tokens. And it's fairly simple. So for miniature-wise, you need survivors and zombies, and a way to designate that zombies have gone from passive to active. And honestly, for me, I have so many zombie miniatures, I'm probably just going to knock them over on the table and just put them on their side. That's easy enough. You could also use tokens. That's another thing. The game does require that you have some tokens that you can use for objectives, like crates or chests or garbage cans or whatever you have that can represent like a point of interest type deal. Your survivors can also set traps, so trap tokens can be useful as well. Pretty much in a game like this, anything could really be used as terrain. You can use boxes, containers, or if you're like me, you have some terrain lying around just waiting to be used. But the author recommends buildings with interiors and ladders and stairs if you have elevated spaces. A big point he makes is chain link fencing and vehicles are important. And the best thing to do here is to find a way to designate which vehicles are operational and repairable and which ones are just terrain features like broken down vehicles and whatnot. That's as simple as if you have some laying around, that's good, or you can just put tokens by the ones that are just features or repairable or whatnot. So the game is played with just D10s, which is kind of a good thing, because if you're like me, you're going to have a bunch of D10s laying around. So the rolling method here is plain and simple as well. Basically, you're going to roll a D10 and you're going to add your skill score, which basically is just, it's how good you are at something. So a roll of 1 is always a fail. Roll of 10 always succeeds. The only other roll you're going to do is sometimes tier checks are called for, and that's more like it's kind of like your level or your, tier is the best way to describe it, really, because the tiers go from, to heroic, to leaders, to just followers or whatnot. So there's different tier levels depending on how experienced your survivors are. The game time is represented in turns, which is about a week in game for your survivors, for your settlement. The the thing that I think is kind of cool about it is when you're doing placement rolls, you can either do a kind of a complex coordinate roll, or you can actually do what's called a radiant roll, because what they do is now I'm going to prefer this one. Basically, you roll a d10, you add 3, and then that becomes inches, and you use the tip of where the die is pointing to place it out wherever you're at. So I mean, so if you need to know where to place a zombie or whatnot, you roll a die and the tip points to where the zombie goes, and the number of inches equals the die roll plus 3. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, you don't get any more simple than that. So there are 2 layers to the game. So there's going to be your tactical layer, which you can see here, and this is going to be where your survivors are going to roam around a map. They're going to interact with different elements in the game, such as terrain features or zombies, objective markers, things like that. And then the tactical layer is built out into, you have a mission map, right? You have your spawning of random elements, which is the zombies, the resource tokens, strangers, which are other survivors, and then you have your vehicles. There are some pre-mission skills as well, and those are it's like scouting, for instance, will allow you to move things around a little bit. All right, then you deploy your survivors, and you take your tactical turns. And this also is pretty easy. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on everything here, because obviously you need to get the book. This is, at first I was a little intimidated by the size of the book, but when I started reading it, I was actually quite impressed. I like the way it breaks down. I like the way the survivors react. The zombies are basically, they're all run by the AI, and the AI is very, very simple to figure out. The zombies act whenever you act, and then the aggressive zombies, which are the ones that are standing up, they activate as well. So they activate. You activate them one time until all have been activated, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it really is not that difficult. So your actions that you can take on your turn, for instance. So every survivor is going to get, when they activate, they get 1 activation and they get 2 actions, right? So your most common actions are here. It's going to be basically move, attack, and interact. So each of those actions is broken down into the different things that you do. For instance, you've got this one here, which is a move. Okay. And if a move gives you noise 6, right? And the noise is what attracts the zombies. So each thing that you can do, for instance, evading, climbing, all of it has a noise value, right? So you've got your different attacks, right? Shoving someone, melee attacks, ranged attacks, and that's by the noise type is by the weapon type. Also easy enough, right? And then you've got your interacting with your battlefield, right? All of these things that you can do, from, scavenging resources all the way up to driving vehicles, barricading a door. All of these things that you can do, everything is broken down pretty easily, pretty simply within the book. There's even rules for breaking and entering, for breaking walls, windows, dividers, anything you can think of is covered here. Now, this is the part that I like. This is the part that I think is really good about the game. The zombies AI is very, very simple. You basically you go with your passive, your aggressive, right? And then you get your attack, your defense, your detection, and move, right? Easy enough. Passive one's the same. Okay, and this is basically so each of your zombies, they start in a lot of them start in the ones that start in passive mode anyway. They're not going to do anything until they detect the survivors moving around and doing things, right? So the zombies defense score is your target number for an attack when you're rolling your d10. Okay, you roll it, you add your skill, whether it's melee or ranged. And then your zombies detection score is the target number for stealth checks. So you're trying to avoid the zombies as best as you can, but eventually at some point you're going to make enough noise and it is going to activate a zombie or multiple zombies, right? And then you have to fight. Plain and simple, easy enough. So the game going on, it goes over your zombie hordes, right? It tells you exactly how the zombies are going to activate, what they'll do, right? From checking for contact, movement ranges, the passive zombie checks, the aggressive zombie checks, random movement, and then all the way down to, when your zombies attack your survivors, right? And then once you basically, in your tactical phase here, you go from the beginning of your turn to your activations and to the end of the turn. And then finally, once you go through enough steps, you go to the end of the mission. Now, the tactical phase, basically, once your survivors and your zombies take turns, you wrap up with the end phase, and eventually, as you go, when you get to the end phase, every time you get to the end phase, you're going to check for your end scenario, your mission goals, right? To stop and move on to the next phase of the game, which is going to be the strategic layer. And this is where the game is a lot different from anything that I've seen so far. It's this strategic layer that you've got here is very interesting to me. So basically, this is where you take care of your base. It's where you take care of building a settlement. Okay, and I have not seen any games that I can think of offhand. Now, keep in mind, I do have a lot of skirmish games, and I play as much as I can, but I've not seen any that have a base building phase where you can go back and you basically have this campaign mode that you can go through that where you can advance your characters. You can build up you're building up a colony in this particular, in this game. So your planning phase and your management phase is where that shines, honestly, to tell you the truth. I think that I think I'm going to have a lot of fun playing this game. So moving on, you start off with your mission phase, which is basically your prep phase, right? You select your mission, you equip the team, you run the mission. That's where the tactical phase ends. Once you're done, you move on to the advancement phase where you calculate your XP and spend it. Skills cost XP equal to the skill's new level. So going from 1 to 2 costs 2, 2 to 3 costs 3, etc. Your tier is increased by spending XP equal to the new tier level times 2. So if you're a rookie, which is tier 1, to go to tier 2, you would need to spend 4 XP, which is double the new tier. So in this step, you also take into account new survivors, right? Strangers that you rescue. You basically generate a new character and add them to your community, which is kind of neat. I think that's really cool. The next steps would be your material storage, which is again a D10 roll. So it's kind of what you get is a random element here. So once again, this makes every game you play different. Everything you get is different. And then it's added to your base inventory, to your storage, right? You go on to the healing wounds step, which is basically anyone that was assigned to resting during the previous planning phase regains their HP. Easy enough. You add after that, you can add facilities and upgrades, which is, again, this is the neat part for me. This is the part where I actually am kind of excited to play now. Like I said, at first I had a little trepidation because of the size of the book, but the game is planned out and written so easily that it really is kind of a no-brainer once you start. It just flows really well. So the planning phase is where you get into your colony buildings, right? So you assign your staff, you assign projects to build, which is to build facilities, build upgrades, build and trade equipment, and then you go on to, from there, you go into your assigning of rest and healing, which we covered in the last step. So this is where if you have a survivor that's hurt, right, you can assign them to rest and healing, which will get them back to full health after the mission, right? You assign your mission team, and then basically you're good to go from there, right? You're basically once you assign and equip your team, you're good. Now, the base management phase is kind of neat. So the first thing you do is check for rot, right? That's the zombie. Basically, what the zombie disease is called in this is called the rot. That's an easy roll. Just again, it's a D10 roll, and you basically minus the medical skill score from 12. So anyone that's assigned to the medical facility, medical clinic, you minus their score from 12, and that's your target number. Plain and simple. You have to feed your survivors, and again, this is a hunger roll, or I'm sorry, it's let me back that up. So it's not a roll. The hunger score, you will roll that later. It comes in a factor later. But basically, every survivor of Tier 1 and 2 requires 1 food, and Tier 2, 3, and 4 requires 2 food. And then you subtract it from your base, and anything left over generates your hunger score. And if your people are hungry, you get negative stats, which is, it's bad. It's really bad. You definitely don't want that. Because if you end up with zero scores, that means all of your people are going to be rolling just raw D10s with no bonuses, and that could turn out really bad for you, honestly. So once you're done with that, you assign the beds, you figure your unrest, and again, this is all calculated in certain ways with the exhaustion scores, the hunger scores, and whatnot. You figure out your unrest, you check your storage, and all of this is really simple, right? So you have your you check your horde, and you check your departures as well, and basically that's it for that. So moving on here, right, if you go a little further to the point where you're starting your community and creating your survivors, right? Your survivor sheet is very simple. You could put this on an index card. Really, really easy. So if you can see here, right, this is your survivor's statistics. So this is Earl. He's a hero, so he's tier 4. And keeping in mind, the game recommends that you have a hero and 2 leaders to start out. And I'm going to test this later, but obviously, the guy that wrote this knows what he's doing. So, if you want something more challenging, you can bump that down a little bit. If you want it to be a little easier, you can bump it up a little bit. Easy enough, like he said. The first thing you know is the rules are not your enemy, the zombies are. So your tier determines your stats, and you assign them wherever you wish. Then you assign your movement and defense, right? And this is the target number to hit you, and this is how far you can move. And then you have your skills, and that's it. That's simple enough. That's your survivor. It's plain, it's simple, it's really not that hard. And honestly, everything from here on out is the equipment and information on all the stuff you can get It gives you information on vehicles and the base building and all this stuff. And now I'm scrolling through this quick. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because, you know, like I said at the beginning, you have to get this. You have to get this book. If you are a fan of zombie apocalypse games or The Walking Dead or what have you, you have to get County Road Z. It was written by Jordan Heckman, and I like what he's thrown down so far. You know, the tagline here, this is the part that got me. County Road Z is a tactical tabletop game of rural survival in the zombie apocalypse. This is it. This is right here. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead, if you're a fan of zombies, like I said, get this game. To me, it covers all of the basics of what you need to make a really good game. So, like I said, so to wrap everything up, in my opinion, and of course this is just my opinion, I think that this game is going to be amazing. I have everything set up to play my first game. I've got all the stuff I need. I've got the dice. I've got the terrain and the miniatures and everything set up and ready to go. And I'm going to play my first game here pretty soon. And I think it's worth the buy. Now, keeping in mind here, one thing I did want to say, the PDF was given to me for free, and the physical copy that I have was provided to me at cost, so I did buy that myself at cost. That is just to throw that disclaimer out there. Anyway, so as I said at the beginning of the video, please like and subscribe. That would really help me out, and thank you for watching.